Welcome to another episode of Best Available Podcast. April 26th, our last episode of April. We're already 4 months through 2021, which seems really crazy to think about. And Matt, I think it's finally spring. Today it's a little chilly. It's a little breezy, but I looked at the weather forecast. It's going to be like in the mid 80s this Wednesday. So I think we finally made it through that bad early part of spring, and now we're at the really nice part of spring.
Yeah, it's definitely the first 2 weeks of April are definitely forgettable. It does stay light out longer, but as you said, it's like 30 degrees at night, and if you're lucky, it'll get up to 60 during the day because that's New Jersey weather for you. The 80 degrees will be great, except we're at the point now where a lot of dads in the world are too cheap to put on the air conditioning, so it's more of a sweated out period, at least in some households, maybe the one I'm in right now. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this to where, you only want to put the air on once, you don't want to keep turning it on and off because it puts stress on the machine. So when it's 85 degrees, you're told to open a window where it's also hot outside. So I am not looking forward to Wednesday, Ryan, because I will not be in cool temperatures.
Your dad is correct. You turn the air on once, and then that's it. You shouldn't, just because there's a random 80-degree day in April, you don't have to turn it on. I agree. Open a window, go to Target, buy a little fan that you can plug in the wall. There's ways to get around this.
I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying it's a big inconvenience, especially from the fact that work is at night. So when I'm home during the day, when the house is on fire, basically, in terms of temperatures, it's just not going to be a good night's sleep. I agree. I understand why he's right, though. I want to preface by saying I know why he does it. I know why dads out there across the world do it. It's a big thing, turning on the AC for the first time. But we don't put it on till like mid-May sometimes. So it's a struggle the next couple weeks.
I will say, I like 80 degrees in April is not the same as 80 degrees in like early June. Just as like 50 degrees in February is not the same as 50 degrees in early April. Like it's all different. Like 85 degrees is going to feel like 100. So I kind of get where you're coming from. But still, I'm not going to complain. The winter we had was a little rougher than I think anybody expected based on what had happened recently. So I think we had the same exact conversation on a different podcast episode where you complain about how you want spring. Not you, but just in general, people complain that they want spring. Then when spring comes, they're like, I just wish it was just like a little cooler. You gotta pick one. You can't have both. So I'm going to enjoy the weather, going to get outside. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. It is a fun week, though, because it is NFL draft week. We've made it through the speculation, the rampant rumors. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Before we get into sports, though, I am putting out a call for help because I need some advice. Last week, if you listened to the podcast, you would know that I talked about getting roasted for having a perfectly good, does everything you need it to. It's probably better than iPhones in a lot of ways, Android phone. I have now reached a point where I'm considering buying or paying off the rest of this thing and getting an iPhone. So it's basically I need to determine whether iMessage and FaceTime, and that's probably about it, is worth the $500 it would take to pay off this phone, not to mention the other fees that I would have to pay for upgrading, this and that. So any listeners out there, I need your assistance. I need to know if iMessage and FaceTime and not getting roasted just because my messages show up green is worth $500. So Matt, I'll let you present your case here. You'll be person number one. You'll be the first advice that I get.
Well, Ryan, I first want to say you have taken a lot of abuse over the past week. Part of it, you were playing with fire when you put it on Instagram for the best available player account. You knew what was coming, so you don't get my sympathy for that. But the group chat, as you referenced in that IGTV thing, that was, out of the blue, the abuse there. I guess I want to make sure that you're not making a rash decision here because you're always Captain Android. You're always on, the non-Steve Jobs side here. So I maybe wait a week, see if you still want it. That's what I do with a lot of big purchases. The FaceTime does help. You won't have to do it. Don't you do it on an iPad, the FaceTime? Or...
Yes.
Which I guess is fine. I mean, it still does the same thing. I remember you did that back in college. It still does the same thing. I guess if you want to consolidate that and the blue messages down into one thing, that would be the way to go. But if you don't mind doing it on the iPad, I mean, it's that I'm in the boat where a phone's a phone. I've just started out with an iPhone, so that's where I've stuck with. And I feel like you're the same way. You just started out with an Android. So
I really feel, I said this before we started, it's starting to seem like it's a gaming console. If I have a PlayStation, and, well, I guess with crossplay, it doesn't really work. Okay, whatever.
Well,
If
we learned that crossplay isn't that reliable last week when two of our friends tried to crossplay on MLB The Show. So
this is true.
That's not always reliable yet. But I think we're approaching that.
If I have a PlayStation and everybody else in my friend group has an Xbox, which they might because I know some of them got Pfizer shots, it doesn't work. You need if all your friends have one thing, it's kind of easier just to be that one thing. I was talking about with you. I think the only friend that I have that I know of that has an Android that I communicate with regularly is Zach, and it's. Everybody else, it would seem like, has an iPhone. So I guess, I don't know. I really would like to stay with Android, but I can't imagine there's too many differences in the year 2021 between Androids and iPhones. I think you're paying a premium for that stupid Apple with a bite taken out of it on the back of the phone that nobody sees anyway. But I guess there's some better things about it. Well,
we're approaching the same thing with anything owned by Disney. I mean, right? Any kind of content that we consume is from Disney. I mean, right now I'm on the ESPN website. That's a subset of Disney. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier that I've been watching the past month and a half is Disney. They own everything. So Apple is kind of monopolizing the game in the tech world, which I mean... Then they could drive up the prices, and then you get into like a whole monopoly thing and the antitrust laws and everything and all that stuff that we learned in high school. But I don't know. I've always had once I was old enough to have, because our generation, Ryan, was the last generation to where you had to be old enough to have a phone, right? And then old enough to qualify for a smartphone in terms of like your household, right? I mean, like now kids have iPhones at like 6. So I'm still young to having an iPhone, I guess. Well, high school, I would say. But started out with that. You started out with the Android, and I don't know. See if you still want it, and gather your intel. See what you think, because it is a big jump. Because I know you just got your Android last year, I think.
Yeah, it's that. In hindsight, it probably would have made sense in August to go with an iPhone. And I was close. I don't remember if I talked about it on the podcast at that point. I don't even think we started the podcast, but I was considering iPhone heavily back in August, and then I just decided to upgrade from the Galaxy S7 to the S10. If I could go back in time and change one decision in my entire life, maybe it would be that one. That seems to be the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. So, if you have any advice, anyone out there, if a blue bubble is worth $500, I would love to be enlightened. So let me know. So let's get into some sports. I guess we can start with the NFL draft because that's this week. Ian Rappaport tweeted last night, I think. Let me get the exact tweet up. I'm pretty sure it was last night that the 49ers have zeroed in on who they want to pick. Here we go. So this was 9:42 p.m. as 49ers closing on their decision of which QB to take at 3. Sources say they're down to 2 prospects, and the belief is that those 2 are Mac Jones and Trey Lance. Several sources say the focus does appear to have shifted to those 2. Matt, I am sick and tired of this 49ers stuff. It's you hear a different thing each day. We talked about this a little bit last week. I think we need to talk about it again. On one hand, there's a lot of smoke about Mac Jones. On the other hand, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are pretty close to the vest. They really don't reveal a whole lot. They don't have a lot of leaks. So it just seems weird that for a front office that really never had anything leaked before, all of a sudden everybody knows that they're going to take Mac Jones. It seems a little weird to me. I know there's a lot of people saying the same thing, but there's something that doesn't seem right about it. I really want to believe that they're not taking Mac Jones.
Yeah, but I mean, when you really sit and think about it, the more it makes sense from their perspective in terms of what Shanahan looks for in a quarterback. Listen, you and I talked about it last week. I said it before. You've said it before. Justin Fields should be the no-brainer 3rd pick because no one really knew what Zach Wilson was going to do up until the season, and he showed that he could be a really good prospect. So Fields should be the no-brainer. The Mac Jones thing is still kind of puzzling. It's kind of like the inverse effect of like the Laramie Tunsil fall from draft night a couple years ago, except this has been just an exponential buildup. I mean, Jones wasn't even a first-round pick at one point. We just put up a mock draft from our buddy Nate Gonzo. He has Jones going 19th. So clearly the talent doesn't warrant the number 3 overall pick, right? And that's no disrespect to him. He might be a really good player, but clearly if you're going based off of rankings and everything, he's not the 3rd best player in this draft class. But it could be all smoke and mirrors just to kind of throw people off, but they don't really need to, right? You don't need to, because they traded up for the 3rd pick to get their guy, because it's clear that New York's going to take Zach Wilson, so they don't need to kind of throw anybody off the scent of who they're going to pick and leak anything out, right? Because they have control. So if they're hearing that it's Mac Jones, then it's probably going to be Mac Jones.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me too. Like there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, this is just a smokescreen. Don't believe it." But you bring up a good point. Who are they smokescreening? They don't have to. It just blows my mind that these 2 can watch Kyler Murray run all over the place. They can watch Sean McVay not be able to make it work long term with Jared Goff, and say, you know what? That's what we need. We need a guy that can't move really, that's not really that mobile. That's what we need for this offense. It seems like they have examples in their own division on why this isn't the smart thing to do. And I said it last week. Mac Jones, in the right situation, can be good. It's just that the other 2 have the ability to be so much better. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a decision. It should not be this difficult.
Well, we all know how this is going to end if they take Mac Jones. Jimmy G will win the job in camp. He'll play 2 or 3 games. He'll have a bad game at Seattle or at Los Angeles. And I want us to clip this because when the schedule comes out, they're going to have a divisional game late September, early October, or a tough opponent. Jimmy's going to throw a couple picks, and then people are going to start saying, oh, well, Mac Jones is sitting there. He had a really good preseason. Why don't you throw him in there? And then by maybe week 7, week 8, Jimmy has another bad performance, and they're kind of like around 500, and then they put in Mac Jones. That's how the season's going to go for San Francisco. I'm willing to book it right now. That's what's going to happen. I haven't even seen their schedule or their draft, but we all know how it's going to go down. And that's my other problem is you're just sitting on Jimmy Garoppolo like that. They could have really capitalized and got another high pick by trading it to a team that was desperate for a quarterback. I mean, look at Detroit, who obviously unloaded theirs to bring back another guy. New England, Carolina was apparently in the mix because they got Darnold. So a lot of missed opportunities here from Lynch and Shanahan.
So We're doing a pre-show on Twitch on Thursday, but I'm going to ask you right now, lock in a pick for the San Francisco 49ers. Who is it?
Oh, Mac Jones. It's been my lock for a couple weeks now. It's like the Daniel Jones thing, right? I mean, nobody thought Daniel Jones was really going to be a top 10 guy, and then everyone said the Giants really like Daniel Jones. And then sure enough, with the sixth pick or whatever he was picked at, the Giants select Daniel Jones. It's the same exact thing.
I am going to lock in Justin Fields. I just feel like for a front office that never has anything leaked, I'm locking in Justin Fields. That's it. So I do want to bring up your team because it seems like in every mock draft that I read, your team moves up to the top 10, 7 or 8 to get a quarterback. So what does your ideal draft night look like? Does it involve trading up or does it involve staying at 15?
Well, my ideal draft night is just getting a good player because some people somehow thought we were rebuilding last year, which is not at all remotely close. We were retooling. We were capped out. If you get a quarterback of the future early on, great. I know they really like Jamie Newman out of Wake Forest, who was one of the top guys in that class right before COVID happened and everything. If they get him in the later rounds on like the third day, whatever. Kellen Mond, whatever. Kyle Trask, whatever. Apparently they are doing homework on them. At the end of the day, as long as they get a good player, people think we're trading up. We're probably going to go the other way and trade down if you're going off of history. Bill likes to get more picks. It's probably what's going to happen. I highly doubt we will end up with one of those top 4 or 5 quarterbacks, Ryan, in that first round. It will highly unlikely that we will get one of those guys.
That's I've seen them trade up for Fields. I've seen them trade up for Lance. I've seen them trade up for Mac Jones. I've seen it all over the place. So you really don't think there's a chance that Bill isn't fully confident in Cam and he kind of wants to get a younger guy just in case?
Well, he will. It doesn't mean it's going to be at 15. That's what I mean. They took Jimmy in the second. They took Jacoby in the third or fourth. So there's no history there or track record of taking a quarterback in the first round. Obviously, having Tom Brady there kind of deters that for 20 years. But, I mean, I could see a scenario where they wait until day 2 or day 3 for a quarterback, and I'd be fine with that. If you really want to know what position I think they're going to take at 15, I really wouldn't be surprised if they just slap a corner there and just say, here you go, another cornerback, something we don't really need. Probably a defensive player. We don't usually draft offensive guys in the first round. We did a couple years ago, and look at how that turned out. So probably defense, probably a linebacker. For a while, people were saying Micah Parsons. I would have loved that, but he's going to go much higher than that probably now. So probably defense. I'm not really sold. I mean, I like Justin Fields. I like Trey Lance, but do I want to trade up for Trey Lance? I don't really know. I would trade up for Justin Fields, though, but not really Trey Lance.
I think this having to get a quarterback in the first round mindset that we've seen, especially really, really recently, like within the last 5, 7, 10 years, is fascinating. It's just, it seems like a lot of these teams just get guys that really, I could guarantee, aren't super high up on their boards compared to some of the other options they could take. The value's not very good just because it's hammered in their heads that they need to get a guy that can throw the ball. And then it doesn't work out. So I do kind of agree. I think there's better value to be had for a team like the Patriots to not take a quarterback in the first round. As you said, the other options are enticing, but for what it would probably take to get them, I really think it's better suited to get a guy, a rookie, that can contribute this year as not a quarterback. I almost feel like there's better value at that point.
And don't forget, Cam Newton went 7-8 because he missed a game because of COVID. So 7-8 he went last year with a capped out team with no wide receivers. So if you want to just roll with him for another year, he's going to win more than 7 games with what they went out and got in free agency and what they'll probably get on draft night and after draft night. Because they get really good guys, undrafted free agents every year. I mean, there seems to be an undrafted free agent we have every year that ends up starting by week 16 or 17. So, yeah, I don't agree. I don't really value quarterbacks by round because it's just too much to try and trade up and get them. So yeah, I would be shocked if they traded up for somebody like that. I really would be. Because Cam Newton's not terrible. He was, again, you have to realize he was throwing to nobody. So, and he had a month to learn the playbook. So Cam Newton's not a bad option. And if he sucks after this year, then, oh well, we'll figure it out then. But I think he deserves another chance. And I think Bill recognizes that. He's the typical Bill Belichick quarterback. Just goes in, stays early, or goes in early, stays late, wants to learn. So I think Bill likes Cam, and that means I like Cam too. So,
as I said at the start of this, we are going to have an NFL draft pre-show on Thursday. We're going to talk more about the draft then. So definitely tune in that'll be on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/bestavailableplayer. We'll kind of just we'll talk about the first round on Thursday. We'll kind of give our thoughts, our opinions on what we're hearing, what we think is going to happen. So definitely tune in for that. It's a big week for Best Available Player. We got the draft stuff. We have the Soundtown Music Festival that starts on Saturday. It's a 2-day event, Saturday and Sunday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So a lot of great bands there. There's a Facebook event that you can join. That way you don't forget. You can see it on bestavailableplayer.com. The video will be right on the homepage, mobile, computer, wherever you're going to be able to see it real easily. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're excited to be doing that with the Soundtown guys, Russ and Eric, and we're grateful that so many bands showed interest. It seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. I guess we can talk about baseball because there's a lot of some people don't like rule changes, I guess. You had brought up this as a subject, and it just seems to be getting more run each day. The 7-inning doubleheader rule, number one. Let's start with that. The 7-inning doubleheader rule seems to be upsetting a lot of people, especially because Madison Bumgarner pitched 7 no-hit innings yesterday, which I thought he was washed, so I'm glad that something went right for him this year. But it's not technically classified as a no-hitter because it wasn't 9 innings. I think it should be classified as a no-hitter because it's not his fault that the game's only 7 innings. It's not his fault that he's only supposed to get 21 outs. So I really do think that if you put it in the record book, if the game's supposed to go 7 innings and only 7 innings, it should be classified as a no-hitter. It's not his fault that he can't go 2 more innings. It should be a no-hitter.
I'm going to take it from the perspective of someone who has to log stats a lot over the past couple of years. That will throw off a lot of numbers, a lot of averages. So if you're going to put it in its own category, that's fine. But if you're going to put something in with a different variable like that of 7 as opposed to 9, that's going to throw off a lot of stuff. So I understand why, all the stats nerds are up in arms about it. I would be too if I had to sit there and do the math on it in an Excel sheet. So I see where they're coming from. So I'd probably go that way. I mean, it's just so unique and new. If you want to make its own category, that's fine, right? I mean, 7-inning no-hitters and do that. Make it its own thing. Don't make it a 9-inning no-hitter. You have to specify it.
They officially define it as a completed game in which a team that batted in at least 9 innings recorded no hits. So it's not. They do have that. They have that in there, that you have to go at least 9 innings. It's just I feel like, on the one hand, number one, I understand where you're coming from. On another side, I kind of get like, we've seen a lot of pitchers go 7 innings and allow no hits, and then in the 8th or 9th inning, they're not able to keep it up. So I kind of understand how a 9-inning no-hitter, it's a little more special than just, he was able to pitch a no-hitter and a doubleheader. It's just I feel like there has to be some type of recognition for that because either way, it is still pretty impressive. And as I said, it's not his fault that he could only go 7 innings because maybe he could have gone another two. Like we don't know.
Yeah, it's got to be its own specific category. You also have to remember, too, I think this was game 2 of the doubleheader. So this is like hour 5 or 6 of these players being out there on the field. So some of the guys that have been playing since like 1 o'clock there, I mean, fatigue might be a factor. I mean, just alertness. I mean, I can't imagine standing out in the outfield for 6 hours is enjoyable. But, I mean, good for him. Look at how he celebrated, right? He just walked up, gave like a fist bump. Was like, all right, I think the catcher was asked about, were you going to jump in his arms? And said, no, I don't want to be punched in the face. So like his reaction, I think for me is what I would go off of. If you want to, I'm fine with calling it a no-hitter in 7 innings. Just make that a no-hitter in 7 innings. Make it its own thing. Don't call it a no-hitter. You have to specify the 7 innings. So I don't know. That was a big debate yesterday. I think the doubleheaders should stay, though. I'm a big fan of the 7-inning doubleheaders, Ryan. Instead of like an entire workday of baseball, it's kind of consolidated a little bit. The Red Sox have played in like 2 or 3 of them already this season. And I'm a fan of them, personally.
The other rule that's getting a lot of the ESPN broadcasters last night said it's getting a lot of praise. I don't quite think it is the extra innings rule. We've talked about this a couple times, and yet it still keeps coming up. I said I'm a fan of it. Alex Cora, a couple days ago, said that he would go even further. He said, if it's up to me, I'll go man on second, no outs in the 10th, first and second, no outs in the 11th, bases loaded and 1 out in the 12th. I think that would really piss people. Hate the one guy on second base. Could you imagine what the reaction would be if the bases were just loaded automatically and you started with 1 out in the 12th? Like that would be. I like it. I've gone on the record, and I saw best available team member Noah Purcell on Twitter say that he likes it too. So I'm glad I'm not alone. I think the extra inning rule. I think people just like to find things to get upset about. I really don't think in the regular season, in a season that stretches from early April to the end of September, early October, that's 162 games long, I really don't think there's an issue with the extra inning rule. I think people are upset that Major League Baseball is trying to change all these rules that they don't need to. I think this was one of the few good things that they changed. I will defend it. I will die on that hill.
I wouldn't go as far as AC went. That at that point is like a gimmick times 10. I've went on here and said that, listen, this rule change is kind of a gimmicky thing to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. It shouldn't be a derogatory term. You're right. I mean, listen, as a casual baseball fan, right, who watches mainly Boston games and then whatever else is on, I don't want to stay up and watch a 7-hour game if I don't have to. As is the Red Sox play 4 to 5 hour games. In 9 innings. I don't need any more of that, right? I mean, especially to when we're in this new era of baseball, and they tried to limit that with the amount of at-bats that a pitcher has to throw, right, a relief pitcher coming in, so that way there's not so much pitching changes. At the same time, the bullpens are still kind of dry by like the 9th or 10th inning. We saw that in Sunday Night Baseball last night, right? I mean, even with some depleted bullpens. So I'm all right with it. I think the people who are upset about it are in the boat of like, hey, baseball, you also remember, Ryan, the rules of baseball have not changed at all for like 100 years. Like this is like the one sport that has not changed like anything. People are upset about putting a DH in the National League. That's where we're at with the fan base and people who are upset about these rules. So I'm all right with it. Keeps the games moving, adds a little intrigue, adds a little more strategy, in my opinion. So, yeah. Those same people are the same people that think that the pitchers add strategy to the National League, Ryan. Clayton Kershaw shouldn't be hitting in like the 10th inning of a baseball game with the bases loaded, right? I mean, that shouldn't happen. I don't care if he's hit a home run, like, in his career. That was one time or something. Like, it's ridiculous.
This Minnesota Twins site on SB Nation put together a list of 30 terrible things, and that's their words, that are better than the MLB extra inning rules. Some of them are accidentally hitting your thumb with a hammer. Let me see. A gas grill running out of propane in the middle of cooking. Road construction during rush hour. Losing 18 straight playoff games. The movie Cats. Alex Rodriguez buying the Timberwolves. So it's a whole list.
And these are things that are better than the extra inning rule or worse than the extra inning rule?
Terrible things that are better than the extra inning rule.
Oh, get out of here. I would rather watch the extra inning rule than the movie Cats. I mean, did you see the trailer for that a couple of years ago? I would much rather watch a 10-inning baseball game with a runner on second.
Finding out a cookie is oatmeal raisin, not chocolate chip. Now, see that is, I remember when we were at Kentucky, and I went to grab a cookie before the game started, and it looked like chocolate chip. The lighting was a little inadequate in the bowels of this stadium.
It's
arena.
Almost like lighting matters when deciding what to eat, huh?
It's
almost like Matt was onto something.
This was before I matured. This was before I appreciated what an oatmeal raisin cookie really means if you look deep into it. But I took a bite, I tasted the raisin, I was like, ugh! So then I had to eat it. I couldn't just put a bit cookie back on. Maybe I should have. Maybe that could have caused some fun things. But yeah, no. I need people to just get off their high horse. And I'll use the same argument. The regular season is 162 games long. These extra inning games that you end up getting into, they're really not going to affect you at the end of the day if your team is good enough. If your team's not good enough, they continually lose these games, they don't win enough games as it is, then get a better team. That's all it comes down to. Don't get mad because your team's not good enough to win in extra innings. That's my thing. You mentioned the Dodgers and the Padres. Another great series. Tatis trolled Bauer. Bauer said he was all there for it. And then Bauer said that he thinks Tatis was kind of taking signs, and it's this whole thing. It's really starting to rival like the Yankees and the Red Sox from the mid 2000s, where the games go on for like 5 hours. It takes forever, guys. It's entertaining, but it's almost like a really long movie at times that you have to really just I like it, but I don't know. I'm speechless. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. There's Yankees-Red Sox games back in the day, like if it was like Clay Buchholz and
CC.
Yeah, that's a good
and Buchholz would go 6 hours on Sunday Night Baseball. I mean, that still happens with the Yankees and Red Sox, but that's just how it's always going to be. But yeah, we would start, and that was when Sunday Night Baseball, Ryan, used to start at 8. So when we would play at 8 o'clock, Sabathia, Buchholz, that would go until like 1 in the morning, every time. You ask Glenn and Zach, they'd say the same thing. I'm trying to think other Yankees pitchers that would drag it on. John Lester for us would be the same way. Matsuzaka would have like a terrible outing on Sunday Night Baseball, and that would itself be 2 hours long in like 3 innings. So, listen, I enjoy it though. I don't think it's on the same caliber yet, but I'm happy for baseball that there's at least that. We have that to look forward to, because Yankees Red Sox is not what it used to be in terms of like marquee, like, you know, fights every time, trash talk going back and forth. It's usually just the Yankees beating up on us. I don't think that's going to be the case this year, but yeah, like every game should be televised for Dodgers Padres this year. And you know what, and best available player team member John Source tweeted out something, Ryan, that I said back in March, and I will say it again. This is going to be an NLDS series, and it's going to be the worst possible thing for Major League Baseball, because you're going to have it a best of 5 as opposed to a best of 7, and you're going to prevent your 2 best teams from playing for a trip to the World Series. So Johnny's on it with me too. We're going to revisit this in October, and it's going to be a best of 5 series, and we're going to be like, what the hell?
I think I really have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to re-examine the playoff format after this season. Coincidentally, they're not going to say it's because of that, but I just have this really strange feeling that these two teams are probably going to win over 100 games, and the MLB is going to be pissed that they're only going to get 5 games out of it at most. So I really do think they're going to re-examine how the playoff format works at the end of the season. We are about a month in, so let me ask you this before we move on. Your one biggest surprise. There's been a lot of fun surprises so far in Major League Baseball. There's been a lot of not fun surprises too. So, okay, let's do this. Your one fun surprise in Major League Baseball so far.
I'm going to exclude my team because my initial reaction would be the Red Sox pitching staff not being totally incompetent. They've been surprisingly fun this year. I mean, you look at the strikeout to walk ratios for almost all of our pitchers, they're really solid. I mean, even like your guy Nick Pavetta's pitching well. He had a no-hitter through like 6 or 7 innings and then basically lost us the game right after. But like that's been a nice surprise. I don't think that's going to continue much longer. But in any case, I thought Oakland was dead in the water, Ryan, a couple weeks ago. And then they rattled off like 13 wins or 14 wins in a row. Impressive, right? So that's probably the biggest surprise because I thought they were just done. Because when you start out like that, I mean, it's really hard to just start out 1-7, 0-6 like they did right off the bat. I know it's a long season, but morale's a big part of it. And also, I'm going to give you 3 surprises. I'm also going to say Johnny's Royals, their best start in like, I don't even know how long. So Johnny, congratulations. The Royals are somewhat decent and good again. So I'm happy for you. So yeah, those are my surprise. Basically every division-leading American League team, because I don't think anyone would have suspected that.
My surprise is going to be Gabe Kapler and the San Francisco Giants. They have the second best record in the National League right now. They have the top wild card spot. And back in 2019, when Gabe Kapler got fired, I was a very big Gabe Kapler supporter. I said that, listen, it ain't Gabe's fault, the issues with this team and with this organization. They've brought in Joe Girardi through a year and a month. I still feel heavily that Gabe could be doing the same things here as he is in San Francisco. Gabe's done very well in San Francisco. They're not scoring a lot yet, but their pitching has been really, really good. I know you can't attribute that all to him, but I have long been a proponent of the mindset that managers really don't matter much in 2020, 2021 Major League Baseball. I really think that Gabe and Joe Girardi, you'd probably get the same results. So I'm happy for Gabe as a member of the Gabe Kapler fan club, the captain of the Gabe Kapler fan club, I should say. I'm going to self-anoint myself as that. I'm very happy for him that he's experiencing success. My one bad surprise has been the National League East. This was a division that some people are saying was going to be the most competitive in Major League Baseball. It's been very competitive, just not in a good way. The Mets are leading the division at 9-8. Everyone else is under 500. Everyone in this division has a negative run differential, except the Marlins, whose run differential is +1. So the National League East, it seems like, is going to be very mediocre this season. It seems like these teams all have a lot of issues that people did not expect coming into the season. So it seems like 90 wins might take this division, which is not what people expected coming into the year.
Well, I'll give you one good surprise that turned into a bad surprise, and that was the Cincinnati Reds, Ryan.
Yes.
I mean, they scored like 50-some runs in like 6 or 7 games, some ridiculous number. They had the most runs scored in all Major League Baseball. Then they lost 7 in a row, and I was like, oh, man, Cincinnati, even without Trevor Bauer, like, I want the Reds to be good just because I'm tired of seeing the Chicago Cubs and the St. Louis Cardinals in the playoffs. I'm tired of it. But that's a topic for another show. But yeah, that was good to bad surprise. But yeah, to your point, Ryan, about the NL East, I mean, just a lot. I like the Braves yesterday had 1 hit in 14 innings. 1 hit. So you're still in it though, I guess. So that's good. And the Mets the problem is the Mets being in first place, people are talking themselves into the Mets who have their own problems. But everyone wants to forget about that because they're 9-8 and are leading a division.
You brought up the Reds. I found this stat on Reddit from Sergeant Stinkmeaner. Since Amir Garrett wanted to be known as the cockiest team in baseball, the Reds have gone 5-11, including 7 straight losses after losing 5-2 on Sunday. So that 1 week they had was fun, and now they're in last place. The Pirates are better than them. The Pirates are 500. So there's another fun surprise. A team that everyone expected to lose over 100 games, they're playing 500 baseball right now, so good for them. We need to talk about the super duper ultra fun league, because unfortunately it has died. It has passed away. We had to put it down. A lot of people have taken credit for killing it. I'm going to throw our name in the hat. I think we were responsible for it a little bit, at least partially. It just goes to show that if you raise enough of an issue and you start complaining about something enough, people will listen. So that should be the big takeaway from here. We talked about last week. I remember I even said, I think it was a quote, it'll be interesting to follow along and see what happens with this. And then like 2 days later, it died. So that's what happened. There's nothing to follow along with. So I guess it's good for the fans. It seems like everybody's happy now that this thing is going to die. It's going to come back. They're going to try to do this again, obviously. But at least for now, it's dead, which is nice.
Well, as a direct result to that, by the way, the fans were literally out protesting this outside every venue of these big teams. So, like, in sidebar, John Henry still owes me an apology video for trading away Mookie Betts. He immediately put out an apology video to Liverpool fans saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know this would cause this big of a problem for Liverpool." I'm still waiting on mine, Ryan. You know, I know it could be a lot of production that goes into those videos. You know, got to get like a special camera. You know, a lot of post production. I don't know. Maybe the lighting's inadequate. Still waiting for it. But sidebar. In any case, as a direct result, Ryan, they changed the UEFA Champions League competition format to create more games, which I think is something that should have happened a long time ago, just because one thing that I love about UEFA and the Champions League is that their games are on at 2 o'clock or 12. I don't need to wake up at 7 in the morning to watch it, and I think a lot of American fans like it as well. It's a lot easier to watch because it's on later in the day. Best teams are playing as well. You're getting a lot more games in. So that was a direct result of that, is they I think it's like 100 more games or something in the competition format that they're going to do, which I think is great, because I think that was the biggest untapped thing, is the Champions League. Just expand that before you go creating another league. So you're right. I mean, using that same logic, if enough people complain about it, maybe the extra inning rule will go away, Ryan. I don't know, man. People are complaining about a lot of things in sports, even though a year ago we were complaining that there were no sports. So I just want to throw that out there too, for everyone who's kind of complaining about rules and stuff. A year ago we had nothing. So we were watching Tiger King. So did you watch Tiger King, Ryan?
No,
did you join
I did not get on that train. I will say a year ago I was watching some guy in his basement with an electric horse racing thing. That's what I was watching a year ago.
Yeah,
so
that was electric.
Maybe
that was
good
best.
one. Ha ha ha. Maybe you get it because electric. Yeah. So let's not complain about sports. Let's give it a good year. Let's wait until like July, and then we can complain about sports. But let's let them be back for a year.
I will say, people complaining about the Super League were 100% entitled to do that, because
one exception.
Because, like I said last week, sports are a lot different in Europe than they are here. So that completely was going to bulldoze over the way they did everything. So that's justified, in my opinion. Complaining about a runner on second in the 10th inning, I don't know yet. Again, a year ago, we were watching Tiger King, and, you know, someone playing electric horse racing, which was amazing to watch at the time, but in hindsight. But yeah, so the Super Duper Fun League's no more. I will say the Champions League is fun, so people should watch that. It's, you know, nice 2 o'clock when you're at work, throw it up on the second monitor, you know, get like Milan and Barcelona playing. It's pretty good.
Isn't that a Disney princess? Milan?
Well, Mulan, yeah. Was that on our list of things to watch by Glenn? I don't know.
I just found that in my Android last night. I was looking through. I was deleting some old photos, and I saw that it's like Disney movies everyone should watch. So I should probably check that list to see if I've caught up yet. Will the Bruins make the playoffs?
I don't know, man. It's the same thing with the Celtics. I'm hoping at least I get one, but I don't know.
All right, that was talking hockey.
Yeah.
To close out this episode, I wanna. I've started watching a new podcast recently. It has a guy from Impractical Jokers, Sal, and one of his friends. He's a comedian. I think his name is Chris DiStefano. I'm pretty sure. And basically, it's just they debate food, which I think is just like the coolest thing. It makes me upset that I didn't think about doing this because they just started it, I think, in December, maybe November. So I thought we're not going to, I don't want to do the exact same thing they're doing, but just their first episode was Chips Ahoy and Oreo. So what is the better cookie in your mind? Is it Chips Ahoy or is it Oreo?
Well, is this crunchy Chips Ahoy or chewy Chips Ahoy?
Just a regular Chips Ahoy and a regular Oreo.
But that's the problem, though. What do you so a regular Chips Ahoy is technically the crunchy one, which is terrible.
The standard Chips Ahoy and the standard Oreo cookie.
Give me an Oreo. Because if you're going off the crunchy Chips Ahoy, you might break off a tooth. Chewy Chips Ahoy are much better than Oreos. But that's not the standard Chips Ahoy. The original Chips Ahoy is the crunchy one in which you might shatter a tooth in the process. So, based off of that, I'll take Oreos.
I was Oreo as well. I was hoping you would go Chips Ahoy. I'm Oreos as well. I think it's just you got these two nice chocolate wafers and then some nice cream in the middle. It's the perfect cookie. You can do whatever you want with it. They have. I want to give them a shout out. Not that they care, because they're big enough already. But if you guys are looking for a fun podcast of course you're already listening to all of the podcasts that we host at bestavailableplayer.com. But if you're looking for another one to fill your time, I definitely would recommend Taste Buds. I imagine it's on different podcast streaming sites. I know you can find it on YouTube on the No Presh Network. So definitely look. It's really fun. These guys just really get into it. They argue about the craziest things. It's a lot of fun. So check that out. If you have any other sports stuff you would like to note, you can do that now. Brad Keselowski won at Talladega. I did not get to watch the race this weekend, so I don't know if it was a good race or a bad race, but I know Keselowski won, so now he has basically locked himself into the playoffs with a win. So there's another different winner this year, so good for him.
Yeah, apparently UFC had a big weekend. All I saw was a very not nice video of someone's leg just absolutely imploding on live TV. Mm-hmm. But apparently after that, there was a lot of good fights. I'm sure I'm going to see Noah tomorrow night, so I'm sure he'll fill me in on everything. We got to get into UFC, Ryan, because I feel like we're missing out. I don't know. Every time I go on Twitter on a Saturday night, I feel like I'm missing out on something. I don't like that. But I also don't like having to pay $100 to watch something. So that's an issue. But in any case, apparently what about the F1? Were they off this week?
They're off this week. They're back for the next 2 weeks. They're at Portugal this week. So that should be fun. As I said last week, Formula One is a great sport to get into. It's really becoming more popular in the United States because of the Netflix series Drive to Survive. So if you're looking for a show to watch, that seems to be a good one. But yeah, Formula One is at Portugal this week. It's been a fun season so far, so don't miss that. I know it is on a little early for a lot of people, myself kind of included, but I've kind of fixed my sleep schedule, so it's not that bad. So yeah, that comes back this week, and then they're back next week too, which is nice. So that was Best Available Podcast. We're trying to be more concise. We were looking back at some of our old episodes that went like close to 2 hours, so we're trying not to do that again. And we're pretty happy with the product so far. So we want to thank you all for listening. as we said, we got the draft show this Thursday. Be sure to look at our social medias for the time. That it's the exact time that it'll start. Twitch.tv/best available player. And we got the Soundtown Music Festival. That's Saturday and Sunday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You can use a time converter if you don't live in the Eastern Time Zone. So we're going to make you guys do a little work because we can't do everything. And we can't wait to come back next week. We'll give our hot takes about the draft. We'll give our hot takes about the first month of the Major League Baseball season and anything else. So thank you for listening. We'll catch you guys again next week. Enjoy this last week of April.